So today we're going to look at fingerspelling as one of the types of ways that you might assist a child with an articulation difficulty. And I just thought I've made a list because with all of you being teachers, I'm just trying to tailor the course, to sort of fit the right content for all of you. If you watch the general video of, the 90-minute tutorial, and I know Laura has been doing that. Sometimes she's been watching that one and the tailored one for you and probably making some comparisons. Yeah, when you watch the general one, I have a more of a broad approach, but because you're all teachers, I'm sort of tailoring it a bit. So I just wanted to start with why today's topic might be relevant for all of you. If you want to jot down notes as I'm speaking, you can, but otherwise you can just listen. It's just fairly straightforward. With the alphabet, that was on the item 2, was how to do the alphabet, the A, B, C, D. Do you want to just raise your hand if you already know that, even if it's just a little bit? Who already knows that just a little bit? Yep. Who actually has never done it? Raise your hand if you've never done it. Okay, yeah. So for those of you who've never done it, item 2 on Moodle is like the tutorial of how to do each letter, okay? And that is actually a public video. It's the only video so far out of all this series which is public. So you're welcome to share that. Like, say you want to go home and learn it with your own kids or a friend or other teachers, you're welcome to share that one. The other ones, you can't really share them because they're unlisted, and it's not within the scope of this to share those, but this topic 9 item 2 is. So if you already know the keyword signing alphabet, or the finger spelling alphabet I should say, you might already be using it a little bit in your class. And if that's the case, then today's session might just be reinforcing some of the things you're already doing. If you know how to fingerspell but you never use it with your students, then today might be some ideas of how it's just one of the tools in your toolkit. Okay. If you don't know how to do the fingerspelling, then it's going to be a big jump to suddenly start using it in your teaching practice, because first of all, you've got to learn it and then you'd go start to use it. But today might motivate you that it's worth doing that. Okay. Or you might go and talk to a colleague who does know the fingerspelling alphabet and just say, look, do you think it's worth me learning it? Because I think one of the things is it's a really fun, motivating thing for teachers and for students, and it's another life skill. Okay. But I just thought I'd go through and just show you almost some objectives of how I think it can be relevant for teachers. So the first thing would be using the alphabet, the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I'll just go that far. It's another skill, isn't it? So I think it can be a whole class or a small group activity where you're could be focusing on literacy, like actually just being able to say the alphabet. And it also can be focusing on another language. So saying, well, who would use their hands to communicate? So it could fit into a nice class activity. And what I like about it is it normalizes the skill. There are a lot of people in society who say, wouldn't it be good if everybody knew Auslan or everybody knew sign language? Well, that's a bit of a big ask, but I personally think everybody could learn the alphabet at least. Okay, so if everyone in a class knows the alphabet and then someone does come along who's in a mainstream class, or it could be a support class student who spends some time in a mainstream class, if everybody knows how to fingerspell, then it normalizes that skill. Okay, so that would be the first thing. Does anybody already use it that way? Does anybody already teach whole classes fingerspelling? No. So that would be something I'd suggest you could think about, because even just saying, let's all sing the alphabet, well, why not let's all sing and sign the alphabet? Okay, and I have a really great story of some high school boys who'd been suspended for a bit of a punch up and not doing homework and being rude, and they'd had 4 days off school, and they were in a small group that I was working with, and I taught them the fingerspelling alphabet. And you know, the principal and some of the special ed teachers were like, oh, you've got to be kidding me, you know, they don't want to do anything, they don't want to learn anything. But what was really interesting was they were happy to learn the alphabet. It actually surprised me as much as anyone else. I didn't think it was going to work, but I want you to picture this. So 14, 15-year-old boys taller than me with that teenage swagger, and I actually said, can you do the alphabet, like for the head of wellbeing and the principal? And these two boys were like A, B, C, D, you know, with their attitude. But they did the whole thing, and they were actually proud of themselves. And afterwards, the principal said, that's just crazy. And yeah, it's just something I've found about sign language, and I don't know what it is, but some people that aren't motivated to do anything seem to want to do it. Some people that come to speech therapy that don't want to do anything, I'll go, well, we don't have to do speech. We don't have to do any of that. How about I just teach you how to spell your name on your hands? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I can't wait to go home. My brother doesn't know that. I can't wait to show them. Yeah, so you just might like to think about, is there a particular student that you've hit a dead end with, or could it be something that you could do with a whole class? So that's the first thing that I thought could be relevant today. The second thing is that specific visual cue for sound letter correspondence. So, you know, if you are talking maybe across a class or across a noisy environment, and a student maybe, you know, they're looking at, say, the P and the H, like in telephone, and you're trying to show them that P and H can say F. So you could be just doing it, you know, when your classroom's quite noisy, you could just be saying, you know, sort of look at my mouth, you know, if we do a P and an H and it makes F, then you can obviously do all of that just through speaking. But it can get lost too, can't it? Because F can get lost with all that background noise. Whereas if you're saying, you know, if we make P and H, it can make F. So it's just a visual way of representing when you go from letter name to sound. Just raise your hand if you agree that when you say the actual sound, it can get lost in background noise. Who's found that? Yeah, yeah. So this is just a way of having the visual representation. Now, of course, you could write it on a board, or you could write it on a bit of paper, or you could write it in the air. So it's not instead of that, it's just an alternative or another option. Yes, Frances?
I find too, it's a really good prompt when you're not, like, you don't want to say, oh, where is your sound, because you're giving them an extra prompt. It's, where's your sound? And then they have to remember what that sound is. It's a visual prompt, but not a, it's only a little prompt.
Yeah. So it can be, so we could say it's a subtle prompt.
Yeah, without modeling.
Yeah. So, and two reasons for a subtle prompt being good is, one is because you want them to remember. So you're trying to give them a clue without giving them too much information, which I'm sure you would be doing all the time. But the second one is it can be less obvious or embarrassing to peers. So especially those of you working with the older students, you know, they might not want you to be saying, you know, don't forget it's that F sound, but they might be happy just to see that on their desk, and no one's even really noticed as you've walked past their desk that you're prompting them. So yeah, so it's that visual cue, and then it could be that specific cue for pronunciation, like I was saying, but also the specific cue for spelling. So if we think about the word house, we know that the ow vowel, it could be O-U, or it could be O-W, like in now or how. And so I find that it can be useful, like we might say to someone that's written house as H-O-W-S-E, you know, I might go, wow, I can see why you did that, because in the word how, like how are you, you might go H-O-W. But in house, we go H-O-U. So it's giving me a way just to sort of talk about spelling rules that also has the visual side to it, and therefore has the tactile side. Could you all just do the H for me? I don't know, some of you might say H and some might say H. and the history behind that is they're both correct. It just depends on what you say. You probably know that. So just try the H, and then try O, the fourth finger, and then W, and feel how the interlocking feels. How. Now let's do the first part of house. Do the H again, and now do the O, and now do the U. So I'm sure you would agree that the sound was the same, but the tactile experience was different. Okay. And I've actually used this for kids that, having a bit of trouble with spelling rules, or even just they're not motivated, they're not engaged. I'll say, do you know what? If you have to do that in a spelling test or in a test where no one can help you, just try and remember how it felt. I'll say, follow your fingers. And so if you got them to do house, like this could be a student that just keeps getting a particular word wrong, and you go H-O-U, H-O-U, let's do it like a little drill, H-O-U, one more time, H-O-U, then I could say, when you have to remember that, look at your hand. And there's a possibility they're going to go H. Oh, and they'll remember seeing and feeling the two vowels next to each other. Okay, so this is, again, could be an application for you as a teacher. The next point down was the motivation. Just try it. I've just found that it can be motivating. And then we're going to go into a couple of videos today. Finger spelling can be a form of augmentative or alternative communication. So remember last week we talked about dyspraxia. So we'll call it AAC, augmentative and alternative communication. So it's for the student that can speak, but they're not clear. So they might point to pictures or write or sign. And then it's for the student that's non-verbal. So then they use pointing or pictures or signing, not even with speech, because there is no speech, or what speech they have is completely unclear. So that's why it can be alternative or augmentative. So even just finger spelling can be part of AAC, or sometimes it's signs as well. Like, I'm sure a lot of you would have seen that. Finished and toilet. So I'll just do those two. Finished and toilet. One of those is using finger spelling, isn't it? Toilet. Okay. So it happens to be the sign as well as representing what it starts with. I wonder if you know what KK means in Auslan or in sign language. KK. It means kitchen. So now can you see that it's the letter twice, but it's also for the sign. Bedroom doesn't do the spelling. Bedroom is a sign. So some signs are actual hand shapes, and some signs, for whatever reason, follow letters. Okay. So if you already know the letters, you've got a little bit of a head start with learning about sign language. But the main thing is that it can be a prompt, and I'm going to show you a video where we can use that. And it can just be an alternative to any sort of prompt that you use with pronunciation or with letters. So just raise your hand if you've done any kind of literacy program where it had gestures or movements. Yeah? Yeah. So I know there's a few different ones out there, and, sometimes with the vowels, it might have different moves and things. So you can buy a program and you can learn it. And one of the things which I mentioned in the item 2 was cued articulation. So by all means, you can adopt a program that's out there. But what I say is, and what I do in my own practice is, if I have to learn something new, why not learn the alphabet? Because then it's a skill I can use for other things too. And I've found that kids see it as a positive, whereas cued articulation, which we're going to look at, some people don't like it. They think it's a bit weird, and it doesn't have an application for anything else. So that's just, I guess, a little bit of a personal bias on my part, that if you're going to have to learn a new system, why not use something that has other applications? So yeah, out of all of that, I'm hoping that that will make today relevant for you in some way. So I might just ask for a little bit of feedback. Elise, You've been listening away there. Do you want to just unmute? Did you relate to anything there, either something you're already doing or something that's made you go, oh, I'm interested to look more into that?
Yeah, well, I've used other, I guess, phonics programs before. We've used Actions. The one we're doing at the moment is more large, so we don't tend to do Actions with them.
Yeah.
But I do use picture cues.
Yeah. Great. And I think finger spelling it doesn't have to replace it. It can be, you could use the picture cue, and then if you're still not getting the result you want, you can add it in. So for example, with T or T, do you want to all just do that one? T, and feel like the tap. T. So would you agree that the way you sign the letter almost mirrors what your tongue's doing? T, T. Yeah. So that's just an example. L, it actually looks like the written letter, L or L. And some of you might be trying to teach just the alphabet and the order, and look how this looks like the order, L, M, N, because it looks like the way we write the letters. So if you've got a child that says Elementa and can't write L, M, N because they've learnt Elementary, then you can be doing this tactile and the way this looks. So that might fit in with pictures that you're using, Elise, or another program that you're using. Yeah, thank you. Julie, was there anything I said that you're already doing or that was just interesting that you could be focusing on?
Yeah, I've worked in special ed for quite a few years, so I've always finger spelt with the students and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm pretty much, when I'm on a class, I usually use basic signs and finger spelling. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
And is that something you would be happy for your colleagues to come and talk to you about if they want to, find out how you do it?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Do you think people know in the school that you have that skill?
Probably not.
No. Yeah, it's good. It's good to share your abilities, actually. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else want to make a comment at this point? No.
So Jane, I tried to learn, I know the alphabet. I remember being taught in high school and I've never forgotten it since. I started the Auslan course while I was in hospital last year just to give me something to do because I thought, 4 months locked away during COVID, why not do something constructive? But I found that I've lost a lot of it already because I haven't used it. So is that but it's funny how I can remember the alphabet being taught that when I was 14. So
yeah, well, it's definitely a case of you've got to process it and use it enough for it to sort of move into your long-term memory. And that's why I think that all of you have a perfect opportunity to be using it, because I think it's a really valid tool to have in your classroom or with your students. And even if it was just something like saying finished to your students, well, then you're going to remember that sign. Or if one of them goes, oh, can I go to the toilet? Then you could go, this is the sign for toilet, and this means tea. And toilet starts with T, doesn't it? Toilet. So just by using it that way, you'll reinforce it to yourself and you're actually teaching a new skill. So yeah, if I were in your position, I'd be using it all the time, because it's just like anything, the more you use it, the more you remember it. But I do have a bias towards it because it's something I've done since I was 15. But
I remember you did a concert at my daughter's school at North Lakes many years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's she's 20. She'll be 20 this year, so it's
oh, that's amazing. Thank you, wonderful. So all right, well, if anyone has any other comments or whatever, they can put it into the chat. But what I might do is just show you what's in the booklet today, and then I've got some videos that I wanted to show you. And like I said, it's the end of the term, so we'll keep it a nice, fairly low-key sort of session today. But I've got the alphabet on the front. You can use the little tutorial video that was item 2. And I've also got an alphabet poster as one of the supplementary items. And then here we have the handout, which I'm sure some of you will have read. And it's really just on this page just to get you thinking about who out of your students doesn't necessarily learn the best just through the auditory. You probably already bring in visual, because as teachers, you know, you're always looking for ways to link it to visual, whether it's on the board, whether it's through writing, through pictures. And now it's just getting you to go that next step again, which is tactile. Now, some of you would be doing some tactile things with literacy. You know, maybe you trace sandpaper letters and you might make things. So it's, if you have a student that you know responds well to the tactile, then fingerspelling can be fantastic, particularly like vowels and, like I said, with spelling rules. And I'm going to look at a little bit of that towards the end of today. But then there's the kinesthetic and the movement as well. So just like some of your programs that you do, you get your kids up and you get them moving. And some of the programs, you know, do get things like this for the vowels or whatever. Well, keyword signing is just another great thing for those people that learn through the movement. So that's what I was sort of covering on that first page. There's the alphabet chart. You're very welcome to print the alphabet chart to give it out to people, because if anyone shows an interest, you know, I like to freely circulate this because I think it's just so helpful. For those of you that don't know the alphabet yet, then on this page, page 3, I just go through some points that might be useful for you if you're wanting to teach yourself in combination with using the video. And just an important point here about Auslan. So, So Auslan became recognised as a community, I'll just stop that. Auslan became recognised as a community language other than English in the 1987 government policy about languages. So I'm sure as teachers you would have probably heard that, you know, 1987 was sort of a key time in Australian history around languages, around going, well, who's teaching what and how much is language being taught in primary school and in high school, and, you know, what are the language abilities of migrants and all of those different aspects. And that's the point at which Auslan gained official status. Those of you who were teachers and in the system, do any of you remember that, you know, it was signed English, and then in 1987, that was when it was kind of like, no, hang on a minute, if it's students who are deaf or hard of hearing, we actually have to recognise Auslan. Who remembers that? Who was around in that sort of era, 1987 and into the 90s? Yeah. So the alphabet, the fingerspelling alphabet, comes from sign language for deaf people, but it's not sign language in itself. It's just a manual representation of letters. So if all you know how to do is the alphabet, you can't say, well, I know Auslan or I'm fluent in sign language, obviously, but it's a starting point, and it's used when there is no sign. So I just wanted to make sure you understand the history of that, just in case any of you aren't familiar with it. But yeah, it's quite important, that change. And now, like Chertsey Public School, now they do have Auslan interpreters working there. They have Auslan immersion, where the language is recognised as it's not English, it's a different grammar order. But then they have keyword signing, like I'm doing, where the teachers still speak in English and just add in the keyword signs, like, you know, have you finished your work? What's next? Because they want the students to understand English grammar order. And then they have the finger spelling as well. So you can read more about that if, you know, you have an interest in that. On this page here, page 4, I guess this is a little bit what I was talking about with priorities for teachers, but it's just a different sort of table. Some of it will be sort of obvious for you because you have your background in literacy, but this is just showing you all the different ways that you can use fingerspelling, and it's picking up on what Frances said about it can be a great prompt. So speech pathologists use it a lot, and some speech pathologists will tell you they use it in every single session, whether the person has a hearing loss or not. And often it's actually the person can speak clearly and it's just because it's just such a useful tool. And some speech pathologists will say, I don't even realize I'm doing it until a parent says, oh, are you signing? Why are you doing that with your hands? And it's just almost become a form of expression. So who was it? Julie, you said you use it. Do you find you just use some signs without really even thinking? Yeah. Do you want to show us one? What's one that a common sign for you? Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. That's great. So on page 5, there's an opportunity for you to just do a little bit of practice if you want to. So we won't spend the session today doing it because some of you know how to fingerspell and you whiz through this quickly, and some of you would be having to use your chart. But I just want you to know that this is here so that if you're like, oh, I do want a chance to just try and teach myself a little bit, then there's some activities here that you can do. And then there's another page here about practicing with the vowels. So I would like to actually do the second half of this. So I'm just going to bring that up there. And I'd like to go through this because this is where I think it's really useful, and it builds on topic 8 where I talked about the vowels being hard for people with dyspraxia, especially the diphthongs or the double vowels. And this time I'm referring about that list of 8 vowels that speech pathologists refer to as diphthongs. I think your list was shorter, so we can just call it the double vowels. And once I've done this, then I want to play you the cued articulation, just so you can sort of see a comparison of 2 systems. So these were the vowels where we want to have movement. And when we don't have movement in the sound, the speaker can be hard to understand. I'm going to show you a 5-minute video of Jordan speaking soon. And you'll be able to hear that sometimes these diphthongs, these double vowels, don't have movement in them, and it makes the speech sound mumbly. So if you're working with any students and you're like, oh, they sort of are speaking clearly, their vowels are sort of right, but it's like they're not opening their mouth properly, or they're speaking quickly. People with Down syndrome often do have that, and some other people with dyspraxia have it. So when we're teaching it in therapy, we want to sort of overemphasize it. So I like the way you can do that with keyword signing. So if we had the word clay, then the A, I can do it like I did in topic 8, just sort of by movement. So I can go A, or any sort of movement. I might come up A, anything to kind of show movement. But I can also do it now with my finger spelling. So I've got A. You want to all try this if you learn through copying. So touching your thumb. If you're right-handed, make your right hand into a point, and your left hand. It might look opposite on Zoom. A, and then the Y is around the back here. So you go from here to here. So A. So this is an example of if I was doing clay, I might say to the student, we've got K, L, A. And I'm showing that my mouth is sort of moving, and there's 2 moves. I could take a different word like train, T, and now it's going to be A, and it's going to be the A to the I. Train. So it's just making that vowel sort of go a bit longer because there's movement in it. Okay. I, so like in pie, I, and we can spell it I. So some people would say that's 2 vowels, and it sort of is 2 parts, isn't it? It's an I and an E, except this bit's actually R. Can you hear? You're saying I. When a student doesn't put the E on, they just get the R. So my sounds like ma, my name. And A might just sound like manim. And that's why it's not clear. So you just work out what works best for a student. Some of them, they don't need the finger spelling. That's complicated. They just rather the movement. My name is. My name. But if you have a student that already knows finger spelling, then the finger spelling can be helpful. So let's just have a look at toe. Can we all spell toe? T. O. O. Now the E isn't oo, which is what it sounds like, but instead it's just showing movement or two letters. I guess you could say that it's showing a relationship between how a vowel sounds and the letters that we use. This could work for someone that, for toe, is going, why isn't it T-O-W? How would toe look then? T-O. Who thinks that sort of makes more sense, because the word, it almost is like a ooh. T-O. T-O. So you could say, well, that's like toe, like the tow truck, and then like toe on your body. T-O. T-O. What I like about this is the discussion that comes up. I often use this with parents because they'll go, well, why is that? And, you know, we don't really know. Sometimes we need to be able to agree and say, it is a bit crazy, isn't it? Why is it one word W and why is one E? And then I'll say, you just have to remember. Do you want to all try that sign? Remember. Is that one you use, Julie? Remember? Yeah. So I'll say, you just have to remember. And this could be a way to help. Okay. Air. Now, can you hear the schwa on the end of that? Air. Air. So in a moment, when we look at the cued articulation, schwa is just like Do you want to all try that? So if you're hearing air and you're thinking, is that really a double vowel? It doesn't feel as strong as sort of A, which had two whole vowels, because now it's just air. Remember, a schwa is really neutral. Air. And we've got E, oo. They're all the ones that have schwa on the end. So it can be a way just to try and get that. All of these things are going to help students to sound clear. And therefore, it's sort of up to you whether you're going to try finger spelling, because that's sort of what they are motivated by, or whether you're just going to do random things in the air, or whether you might try something like cued articulation, or just your own made up way. Like if you just had lines on a page, you know, it really doesn't matter when the goal is pronunciation. Okay. So I might play you the video of Jordan first. And the idea of playing this, I've sent you an email today, and you've got a link as well, so you can watch it afterwards, and it's a supplementary item. Two things for listening to Jordan today. It goes for 5 minutes. One is, as consolidate last week, he's someone with dyspraxia, and I've seen him since he was 13. When he was at school, he wasn't very motivated, and it was hard to get funding. It's before NDIS. But now as a 24-year-old, he's really motivated and making progress. But he has dyspraxia. So just allow yourself to listen to how indistinct his speech is, in particular these double vowels. Okay. And also just be thinking about, wow, that's actually really hard to understand. And then I just want you to take note of how he uses finger spelling and keyword signs like finish and thank you, like whole signs, as an augmentative communication to his unclear speech. So it's just a chance just to reflect on it. But he uses the finger spelling to be understood when I can't understand him, and he does it really well. How did you hear about that?
This is Kim's.
Kim?
No, Kim's. T-E-I-M.
Teams. Oh, look, you signed it and you spelt it.
Kim's.
Teams. It's got a T at the start. Like that. Is that how you do it? Yeah. So I'll put it that way so I can see it.
It's Kim's.
Teams. Can you say like this onto your hand?
Teams.
Oh, you did it. Were you proud of it?
Teams.
Yes, you did it. Can you? I'll do it 2 times. Teams. Teams. Your turn 2 times.
Team. Team.
How are you so good at speaking now? So team starts with T, doesn't it?
T.
Yeah.
It's Kim's.
Teams. Is that like is that CrossFit teams?
Yeah.
I'll try and say CrossFit teams. I got to get ready for my turn. CrossFit teams. Can you try it slowly?
CrossFit teams.
Oh, Jordan, you're the boss. All right, let's do our sentences. Can you see the sentences there?
Yes.
What number did I just type?
1.
1. Okay. I wonder if that's easy to read or a bit
Yes,
hard. It is easy?
Yes.
Do you want to have a go?
On Friday, thought is also hard.
That one's coming
Commit
to
my house
for
sin.
sing, yeah. And can you see ING? Look, yeah, so when we see that, I'm going to put the yellow because you like yellow. Singing. Yeah. So I'm going to have a turn. We'll put a blue. What background can we put? The blue. And all right. My turn. On Friday, Todd is coming to my house for singing. Can you have a go?
Yes.
Hmm.
On Friday, Todd is
Coming
commit to my house
singing.
for singing.
Oh, wow. This just gets better and better. So that word coming, we use that a bit, don't we? Does Grant come to your house on Wednesdays?
Yes.
Grant is coming to my house on Wednesday. So we'll practice that word coming again.
Commit.
Coming. Yeah. What's this last word say?
Wednesday.
Yeah, good. All right, I'm going to read number 2. Grant is coming to my house on Wednesday.
Grant is commit to my house on Wednesday.
Wow. You are reading. Are you so clever, Jordan, that you can read?
Yes, I know. This is what school.
The words from school, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know so many more words now. Remember when you were at school, you knew some words, and now you know so many words. Don't you?
Yes, I know.
Yeah. All right. It's great to see how excited I got, but also just how well he used a range of tools, really, didn't he? He's starting to use reading and writing, being able to read sentences. We were looking at the syllables, but definitely right at the start, I thought he was saying Kim, not teams. And it was when he was able to spell it for me. Can you see that speech is still his preference. So it's not that I don't make him use fingerspelling all the time. It's just he uses it when it works for him. Did you notice how house sounded like house? House. So we didn't get the full house. House. Yeah. Francis, have you seen that video before? It might be a new one.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about how he was using the keyword signing and the fingerspelling?
His general articulation is so much better. Yeah.
Really
and
progressing, isn't it?
And he's fast. He was fast at fingerspelling. Yeah.
Yeah.
He went to it easily and quickly and did it quickly. Yeah. Yeah. It's a real tool for him, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So I find that he sort of picks and chooses what's going to work for him.
Oh, does he?
Yeah. So sometimes he wants to type it now. Yeah. And then what about someone else? Does anyone want to make a comment on just his speech in general, his dyspraxia, and maybe you've heard plenty of people with dyspraxia like that, or you haven't, Tracy? Yeah.
It wasn't about his speech, but I just think it must be helpful to him. Like it must be frustrating if he's not understood. So it must be really helpful to him to be able to communicate in another means.
Yes.
Because even with young kids who've not got dyspraxia, they're trying to tell you something and often they don't have other means to be able to communicate.
Yes.
You'll be like, show me, or, so, and they get frustrated and you end up agreeing,
Yeah,
so it's good he's got that option, there's things up his sleeve that he can communicate.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of the options, isn't it? And you're exactly right that sometimes they'll just go, oh, okay, and they won't persist. And then they miss out on the opportunity for the back and forth discussion, which is how vocabulary grows, isn't it? And how friendships grow. So that's right. So Jordan is obviously a lot older, but he's someone, the family's given me permission to share, but obviously that could be a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old, or and it's sort of an extension from natural gesture. So I'm sure a lot of you as teachers, when you can't understand one of your students, you might say, show me, and sometimes they're acted out. So it's just building onto that. Francis?
So just talking about what Tracy said, when they're trying to communicate, the finger spelling and the signing, it's like giving them a gift. And because I find it so heartbreaking when, like, it's frustrating for them and it's heartbreaking for me. And then if we can share this, it's fantastic. And I think even when they learn to write and they know how to spell, the signing is so great because you don't always have your phone, or you don't always have a piece of paper, and it's just so much
portable,
and it just adds into what you're saying anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Excellent. And I guess thank you for that. And Francis, what you've said and what Tracy said, you can imagine now if you have a student in your class that does rely on it some of the time, then by teaching the whole class, it's a skill then, even peers can help with each other, or the child that uses it doesn't need to feel self-conscious because it's sort of an acceptable practice in the classroom. So I guess from today, just reflect on, is there anything that you currently do where you could add some finger spelling or some keyword signing in? And it's great to know that you've got Julie there as a resource in your school already, and Francis uses some, the speech pathologists that visit. Who else was it that raised their hand that said they knew some or did a little bit? Was there someone else? And Sylvie, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, you might be reinvigorated, Sylvie, to use it again. So just for balance, I just wanted to show you the cued articulation now, because some speech pathologists do have a leaning towards it. I don't, because for me, keyword signing and finger spelling was just a tool that I already knew. Has anybody ever worked with a speech pathologist or with a family using cued articulation? Anybody? No? So this is just a short little video. I think you'll just find it interesting because having done this course now, down the bottom of the screen, you'll see the phonetic transcript. Okay. Now, Bella, it may or may not use the version that you've learnt, because there's a couple of little variations amongst the two different versions of transcribing, but you'll get the idea. And look out for things like ch and j. Remember what ch was? A T and an SH, which is like an elongated S. And what was j? The D and the funny long Z. Yeah. it goes through all the vowels as well. So even you're not looking at it to memorize the hand shapes. Instead, you'd be going, oh, wow, I actually know a lot now. I know how these sounds are, what they're made up of, the phonemes and the paired sounds. Have a look at the paired sounds, which we've been learning. And this is pretty sure it's a speech pathology student who has had to learn about Qt Artic. So she's done a little video, and she does credit the author and the founder of Qt Articulation, Jane Passy. And if you were to look at this video again, then all the credits are there. So this just goes for about 3 minutes. I think you'll find it interesting. Excuse me. Okay, here we go. And you've got this in the supplementary items and in your email if you want to watch it again.
By Jane Passy. Let's begin. B, b, t, t, d, d, k, k, g, g, mm, 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 mm. Mm, mm, z, z, sh, sh, j, j, mm, mm, ch, ch, j, j, o, o, so it's like this. W, 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 y, y. The vowels. E, I, I, E, E, A, 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 O, 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 U, 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 A, A, E, diphthongs. A, O, O, I, ow, ow, oi, oi, ear, ear, air, 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 or, ur, ur, So that was Cute Articulation by Jane Passy. All the information was taken from the revised edition published in 2010. That book also contains Hilary Fellon, so Jane Passy's daughter. You can see her face here. I apologise for any errors in production or hand movements. I did my best. Thank you for watching.
There we go. All right, so raise your hand if that's the first time you've seen Cute Articulation. Yeah. Bella, you've seen it before? Yeah. Bella, do you want to come on and comment? Was that fascinating to see, like, sort of everything we've been focusing on in the last 8-9 weeks all sort of, you know, consolidated, like the pairs of sounds, and like what stood out to you as being interesting?
I think for me, working predominantly with kindy students, the cued articulation has a much bigger place because we're working an awful lot on initial sounds, initial phonemes. So rather than particularly with vowels and things like that, we want to be quite specific in the exact sound we're trying to get the kids to say. And it's probably also an issue that Tracy comes across as well, is that our accent is slightly different. So to try and tune the kids in, I was actually already thinking about trying to use cued articulation as a hand signal, because my ah is very different to an Aussie ah.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm saying, you know, what's the first sound in ant, they're trying to come up with a sound that is just not, you know, something that they can do easily. And last year I was working with a student who lived in New Zealand for a number of years, and we used to have to try and cue into each other's vowel sounds to make the lesson worthwhile. So I think that cued articulation in the younger years, because they're not writing and they're not spelling words.
That's right, yeah.
Has a much bigger place for me than the finger spelling.
I think that's a really great point, because obviously to use finger spelling, you're working on quite a higher level, aren't you? And a lot of different things. So I think it's really good for engagement for the older students and even the high school students.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cued articulation where it's just movement, and they're not having to think of letters as well. I think that's fantastic. And yeah, so sometimes speech pathologists will do, you know, one or the other, and I guess it's getting the right target audience. I think for a teacher, you know, you're probably happy to learn it and use it. Sometimes parents don't want to because they panic and they go, I can't remember all those things. And we might say, well, you only need to know this one or this one. But I can see, yeah, the point you've made is fantastic, actually. Do you like how, like for the pairs, like the sh and zh, how it was always just one finger and then two fingers for the voiced and voiceless? Yeah, did some of you notice that as you went? So, for example, for the f, you might have gone, oh, I bet the next one, I think it was here, f, I bet the next one will be v, and it will be two, and it was. And all the way through, I think, like ch and j. And so it's a really good way of reinforcing that idea of voiced and voiceless as well. So do you ever use it, Frances, or have you seen it being used?
Yeah, I have. The first time I saw it being used, I couldn't believe the difference. So they were doing p, and they were doing that first, and that was great. That was a good cue. But as soon as she did that, the child automatically did per. Like it was like
it matched the movement, didn't it?
It's like those mirror neurons were kicking in because his mouth had to do exactly what her fingers were doing.
Yeah.
And I noticed with all of them, like when you're saying V, you're feeling that air.
It targets you to the right part of the mouth.
Yeah. So I haven't used all of them, and I know that when I want to use it, I'll go and look it up, and then I'll practice that one. So I only know about 5 of them.
Yeah.
Because I've used only 5 of them. But if it's great. Isn't YouTube awesome? When I need the next one, I'll know to go and look it up, and
Yeah, excellent. So I've put as a supplementary item that particular video, and then you can go into the information and you can click on the different links. So that also, could have application for those kids where they don't have the literacy skills, because obviously with finger spelling, you need the literacy as well. Yeah. Anyone else want to make a comment? No. Okay. So I wanted to show you both of those things, and then we'll go back into the booklet again. So this was just a bit of an activity that you can do in the booklet. Just come back. And I guess this could be, if it's the right sort of student and at the right level, and they have got some spelling, you know, they're understanding some spelling rules, this is where finger spelling can be quite motivating. So those of you maybe working with the upper age group where they know that shoe, you know, they're up to S and H, or S and H, I should say, making shh. But it's also, I really like how it reinforces the idea of it's one phoneme. Sometimes you've got one phoneme to one written letter, and sometimes you've got one phoneme to two written letters. So should we just do, we'll just do it all together. So for shoe, if you don't know how to fingerspell, you can just copy. So you've got the S and the H. And the way I would teach it would be to actually make the two movements as I'm making the one phoneme. Shh, ooh. So shh. And then for tap, so just the first sound for tap. T. So then it's just the one letter. T. What about chair? Do you want to just try the finger spelling and what you would say for the phoneme for chair? So here we make the C and the H, but we're saying ch, ch. So we can see that that's going to be good for the student that's thinking in terms of spelling, whereas ch might be better for the student that's not got the letters in their head. And then bus, B, so that's a one-to-one correspondence. What about thongs? How would you do, what sound would be coming out as you're doing the letters for thongs? Thongs, so there's the voiceless, yeah. Thongs. So again, it's just another way of combining all those different modes, isn't it? And I would say that you would, like I said, just put it in your sort of toolkit for something that you could use. And then if a student comes to your school and perhaps the parent says they know finger spelling, they're already using finger spelling and they have dyspraxia, or they're using finger spelling, they know the alphabet and they have a severe communication disability, well, then you're ready to perhaps start building on some of these strategies that they might have learned somewhere else. Has anyone got an idea of something they want to go out and try from today? Might be nice to share it just because you can hear each other's colleagues. Whether it is there a particular student that you're thinking, I wonder if this could work with them, or a particular activity? Anyone? I know it's week 10 and you might not be thinking that. Yeah, Sylvie, what are you thinking?
I have a student in year 6 that she really struggles. She goes up and down, up and down. There are times where she gets it and there's times, and so I'm going to, it's funny because I was talking to her teacher today that I would bring her up in development day. And I think that is something that we could, you know, like the tactile, to be able to, for her to be, so it'll be interesting. I'm going to do it with that whole, she's in a group, so I'm going to try that with that group. And we were doing the OA and the OW sound. That was our last week lesson. So it'll be interesting because we talked about how a lot of the times the OW is at the end of the word. So rather than, but it's interesting. So I'm going to try that with that group, but one person in particular, hopefully maybe with the more tactile, she'll be able to remember this, because, we all know, I think Bella would be very understanding of Ruby, Bella, where it's like a roller coaster ride. It's can be quite challenging at times for yourself because you feel like you've let them down. But you know, so this will be just something else to try. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's okay, no problem. And like I said, go on to Moodle and print the alphabet posters, and you're welcome to give them a copy of the poster each, and, you know, they take it home or whatever, that's fine. You're welcome to do that. Some kids will just surprise you, you know, they'll go, oh, is this like sign language? And then they might talk about something that they've seen, and they'll come back the next week and they've been watching YouTube videos, and they'll come and start teaching you. Like, I've seen some kids that just really just triggers some kind of interest in them. So, and what you were saying there about, you know, the house, the OU and the OW, I like it for those crazy silent letters too. Like, let's all do this together. Let's all finger spell the word doubt. So we'll say the phonemes and then we'll finger spell it. Let's just do this when I'm saying finger spelling, this type first of all for doubt. So what have we got? D, ow, t. 3 phonemes. Okay. Now let's do the same thing, saying the phonemes, but we'll do it without on our hands. D, ow, and then we'll just do this with nothing. And I'll go like this. T. Okay. Now, what I would do to, let's say that's coming up in a spelling test, or a student's written a piece of work, and for doubt, they've put D-O-U-T or D-O-W-T, and we've shown them there's a B in it, you know, they might be like, that's crazy. How can we help them to remember it? So it becomes almost like a little pantomime that they can process, which hopefully sticks. So if you just watch me this time, so doubt, I might go doubt. So we've got D, ow, t. Can you do it? All right, so you all want to do it now. Imagine you're the student. Let's all do it together. D, ow, t. Now, if you think about it, a week later, you might see that student in a lesson or in the playground or whatever, and you might go, hey, I'm wondering if you can remember what was that missing letter in doubt, you know, that one that we don't say, that crazy one. Do you think they're more likely to be interested and to play along and to go with it by being able to go like that, as compared to you just talked about doubt and it's got to be in it? I think they're more likely, or you could go, hey, was it this or was it this? And so I find it's just good for those students that you've got all the teaching practice there and you know how to teach it, but you can't get them to watch you or listen because they're just so disenchanted with everything. So it's just another way of just bringing that in. So I find it, yeah, it's really good. Let's try the same concept for knock on wood. You know, just think about how you might teach that. You might go knock. Let's do it our sounds. O, k. We've got 3 sounds. O, k. Now let's finger spell it. Ready? Now, if they're a teenager, I'm like, oh, come on. What are we doing that for? You know, it's bringing that, like I said, that pantomime. So then, O, k. Oh, this is one where it's a C and a K. So again, can you see, like, I'm even bringing the shoulder into it. And where Frances was talking before about that subtle way of prompting, you might see a student, you know, they've come up and asked you, how do I spell knock, or how do I spell back? You know, but at, and then we might, oh, I could do it on my fingers, but at, how many letters did I need to make that? And then as you walk past their desk, you know, you're just going to them. And are they more likely now to write a C and a K, whereas before they've said k and they've just written one or the other? And that's where I think it can be applied in, say, a kindy or a year 1 class. Not for everything that you're doing, but perhaps you've taught the rule, or a child said they like trucks, you know, and they've managed to get the t and the and the but they just keep writing either a C or a K. And you might go, oh, in truck, it's that one where you go like this and it comes over, you know, and the kid's fascinated with that. And then you're showing them that that means you write C and K. So that's just some examples of, you know, who does it appeal to? Who is a tactile learner? So here's our topic 9 Moodle. So remember in this Watch the Topic 9 video at item 2, I'm just going to just bring that up because this is the one that I was saying that is, this is now a public video, and see how it's got the share on it here. And yeah, this is one that you are welcome to share. It's got a lot more views on it. It goes through, I haven't got the sound on, but just showing you how to make it. So you're welcome to play that for your students if you decided to use it. You know, you can even play that for a class or play it for a small group. So that was that one. And then down in here, so item 1 is the chart. And this just has in the top corner here, spell on your hands. So you don't have to print the page out of the booklet, which actually says Topic 9 booklet on it. So that's the one that you're welcome to print and share. There's the video that we had a look at there of Jordan. And there's the cute articulation video. So just showing you that those things are there. So for the first time, we've actually finished early. Now I have got one more video of Jordan, which shows him using these strategies again and using a range of strategies. So I might finish up, if no one's got any other comments or questions, I might finish up by playing that. And therefore, if you need an early minute, you don't have to stay and watch it. But if you'd like to stay on, you can. But Frances, you've got a comment?
Just one more thing, because I love watching Jordan and you together.
Yeah.
But the one-handed signing language, the American one, I found helpful as well, especially when you're shortening it to things like dad instead of doing father. Australian kids will normally talk about dad, or you know, like that's R in the one-handed, and then this is rice. There's a lot of
nice links, yeah.
So
what anyway, Frances is referring to is that in America they use a one-handed alphabet. Has anybody learnt that one? And you've got one hand free, but also a lot of signs have the hand shape. Like if that's R, well, that's the sign for rocket and rent and restaurant and recess. So as you learn it, it links in nicely to literacy. So that's what you're referring to, Frances? Yeah. Okay, so I'll play this last video, and I'll play about 6 minutes of it. Again, it's just another opportunity for you to hear dyspraxic speech and for you to also see, in this case, Jordan uses like his fingers to show there's a list, and I don't understand what he's saying. And he eventually uses a G. I'll tell you, he thinks the word photograph or photo and photography, he thinks they're two different things. He sort of knows that they're related somehow, because at one stage he gives me a clue. And for photography, he's saying something like tikigar, and I've got no idea what he means. And I'm trying all these strategies to work it out, and we're both sort of trying to be patient. And in the end, he signs a G, because there's a G in photograph. And then he also finds it, he Googles it and writes it down, and then holds his phone and shows me. So he's using another form of AAC, which is typing and showing. And then I finally get it. So it's really good to see sort of his persistence, I guess. But yeah, you'll see at one stage he does that, and I say photos, and he does say graph, but I can't understand enough. But I've been confused because he thinks they're two different things, and I'm thinking that they're one thing. So yeah, I'll just get that video and then I can show you that. So it won't be a sec.
Cool. Papola YouTube. But start. Mark is on the YouTube. That is it on there.
Jordan, something on their YouTube. Are you going to encourage them on YouTube? Are you going to speak to them?
Yes.
Yeah. Are you going to help people on YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah. What are you going to help them with?
No. CrossFit.
CrossFit.
Films.
Are you going to help them by making some films and putting it on YouTube?
No. Frame. And videos. And la is system.
On YouTube, yeah.
That's the system. Frame. And videos.
Films, something, and videos. What's this middle one? Films. What's this middle one? Can you type it for me, this one?
No.
Photos.
Videos.
Photos. Photos.
The frame, boxer, videos, and take it out.
That's 4 things.
Yeah.
Shall we see if we can type those 4 things? I'll share the screen with you.
No. Frame,
Films,
video,
photos,
and the no, say.
You don't know that one?
Yeah.
You don't know how to spell it.
Videos.
Videos.
But take it out.
Photographs.
Facts. Yeah.
Photographs. All right. So we've got films and photographs.
Yeah.
And videos.
Yes.
And what's one more?
My phone there. But frame, videos, take it out.
That last one, I don't know what that is. Can you spell that one? T? Is it T?
No, the Tikiga.
Tikiga.
No. Video.
Photos.
No. Tikiga. G.
G. We got to find that word. You help me. It's just hard to do it.
Hard.
No?
There.
Photography. Photography. It has got a G in it. Photography. Photography. Yeah. Photography. Photography. Oh, well done. We did it.
Yeah.
Woo!
And,
4 things. Yeah, 4 things. So we had, what's the first one?
No, it is.
You know what it is?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I don't know it is.
I know what it is. Photography.
Yeah. No, film.
Films.
Yeah.
Videos.
Photos.
Photography. Ah, good. Great.
Yeah.
Jordan, can you see if this list is right? I did the four things. Is this right? Films?
Yes.
Videos? Photos?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And that's the 4 things on YouTube.
Yes.
Yay, well done. We did it. Okay, well, shall we finish?
Yes, okay.
All right. Thanks, Jordan.
Okay.
Bye. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's a nice positive way to finish, wasn't it? Yeah, so, big thanks to Jordan and his family for permission to share that and to see how that G was the turning point. Would you agree that Titiga didn't sound like photography? Yeah, so any last comments? Otherwise, we'll finish up because it's 2:30. So stay on if you've got a last comment. Thanks, Sylvie. And I'm going to see you in week 2 of the term. Thanks, Shannon. Yeah, and thanks for a great term all learning together. All right, bye.